Okay, so you know how it is, right? You want to be in the loop, you're super curious, but there's just so much information out there, it can feel like you're drowning.
Yeah, totally. It's like trying to drink from a fire hose sometimes.
Exactly. And that's kind of why we do these deep dives, trying to cut through the noise and get to the good stuff.
Yeah, taking a deep breath and diving into the archives.
And today we are going deep on, you guessed it, more JFK files.
Oh, yeah, we're back at it again.
Yeah, I think we're up to like batch 4 or 5 now of these newly declassified files.
They just keep coming.
They do keep coming, which is great. Although I have to say, the U.S. government's organizational method for uploading these files,
Oh, not great.
not ideal. Very, very disordered.
It's like they just kind of dump them all in a big digital pile.
It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, but with like half the pieces missing and no picture on the box.
And the pieces are all different sizes and shapes.
And some of them might be from a completely different puzzle.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's a challenge, but we're sifting through it for you.
For you, our dear listeners, and we really appreciate your patience.
We know it takes time to go through this stuff and make sense of it all.
But trust us, there are some real gems in this latest batch, some really fascinating stuff. So for this deep dive, we thought we'd focus on a few key things.
Okay, yeah, what are we looking at today?
Well, first, as always, we're going to go chronologically.
Makes sense. Follow the timeline.
We're going to drop in on certain dates, see what's going on, and along the way, we want to pay special attention to a couple of things.
Okay, lay it on me.
So first, data collection. How is information being gathered, by whom, and for what purpose?
Ah, the nuts and bolts of intelligence work.
Exactly. And then, of course, the shadowy world of spycraft.
Ooh, intrigue.
Right. Coded messages, secret meetings, all that cloak and dagger stuff.
The stuff of spy movies.
Absolutely. And, all of this is happening against the backdrop of the JFK assassination, which, as we all know, was a huge turning point in history.
Yeah. And even though these files don't explicitly address the question of whether Oswald acted alone, that question still kind of hangs over everything.
It does, right? It's this big unspoken question mark, like, what else was going on? Who else might have been involved?
And we'll be dropping those file names as we go.
So you can follow along at home, do your own research, if you're so inclined.
That's right, folks. Get your magnifying glasses out.
So with all that said, why don't we jump right in?
Let's do it.
All right. First stop, November 23, 1963. File 104-10075-10099.pdf. Just one day after the assassination?
One day after.
Wow.
And what's going on in Havana, Cuba?
Oh, just a little military parade, it seems. But not just any parade.
200 tanks, according to the report.
200, that's a lot of tanks.
Yeah, and some of them were packing some serious heat.
Like what?
Twin cannons.
Okay, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, but also, get this, flamethrowers.
Flamethrowers. Now, that's not something you see every day. No, not your average tank. And according to the field comment, this information came from a Cuban professional with contacts in Cuban government circles and Western Cuba. So, someone who might actually know what they're talking about.
Right, not just some random guy on the street.
Exactly. So what do you make of this? 200 tanks, including flamethrowers, rolling around Havana the day after JFK is killed.
It's definitely a statement. Like, maybe they're thinking, okay, new president, new world order, time to show our strength.
Right. Or maybe even, things are unstable, who knows what's going to happen next, let's make sure we're ready.
It's definitely a show of force, one way or another. Makes you wonder what kind of intel the U.S. was getting about Cuba's intentions at this time.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Fast forward a couple of weeks, December 6, 1963. File 104-10076-10229.pdf.
Ooh, this looks like a juicy one.
Yeah, this is a message that's just dripping with spycraft. Lots of code words, secret instructions.
Okay, hit me with some of that code.
Okay, so it starts with Siete X recibi inclusive. Uno ses X buen trabajo X también recibi. Es vi número 6 X info magnifico X.
Okay, I'm not fluent in spy, but even I can tell that's some serious code talk.
Right, and it goes on like that for a while. But
Yeah.
even without a decoder ring, certain words jump out.
Like what?
Like repuestos, which means spare parts, dinero, money, and most importantly, balas.
Balas.
Bullets.
Okay, so we're talking weapons here. That's significant.
Very significant. And there's a section marked for dear only, which decodes some of the first part, confirming they received information and saying good work. Mentions sending spare parts through someone named Enrique Vicente Socorras. And then there's this line, no necessary use Jorge Gutierrez Morales now. Is he named Gutierrez Morales? Perhaps we can use him later. will try to send him money anyway for the future.
So they have assets in place, people they can call on when needed,
Hmm.
and they're making sure they're taken care of, even if they're not actively being used. Classic spy stuff.
Exactly. It then goes on to say, bullets will arrive soon. Filters too. Advise if you received Pouch NR10 via ALCON, which is Falcon.
Falcon, huh? Sounds like a code name.
Totally a code name. And then it mentions a Russian ship, the Krasnoye Znamya, expected in Havana, and asks for information about its cargo and any Russians disembarking.
So there's a lot of movement here. People, supplies, possibly weapons, and it's all very hush-hush.
Very hush-hush. This level of encryption, it's clearly a very sensitive operation. Makes you wonder what else they were up to.
Right, like what's the bigger picture here? What are they planning?
Lots of questions. Okay, next up, December 7th, 1963, file 104-1076-10371.pdf. This one involves some mysterious travelers.
Serious travelers. I like where this is going.
So the report says 2 trucks, not of U.S. manufacture, were spotted in Batabano, Habana province, around 6:00 p.m. on November 6th. And these trucks were carrying 24 men who appeared to be Soviets.
Soviets in Cuba, that's not unusual in itself.
True, but the timing is interesting, right? Just a few days after the assassination.
Yeah, and what were they doing there?
Well, the report says they were well-groomed, wearing clean clothes, carrying suitcases and bundles.
So not your typical military guys then.
Not exactly. And where were they headed?
Drumroll, please.
Isla de Pinos. They boarded the ferry at midnight.
Okay, so more movement, more secrecy. And what's on Isla de Pinos? Anything interesting?
Well, according to a field comment, the regular ferry to Isla de Pinos departs from Batabano for Girona, Isla de Pinos, on the night of November 6th.
So it seems like they were just taking the regular ferry. But why all the secrecy?
Right. If they were just regular Soviet personnel, why not be open about it? Why sneak around?
Makes you think they were up to something they didn't want anyone to know about.
Something connected to the assassination. Or maybe something else entirely. We just don't know. Okay, same date, different file. File 104-11-00076-10372.pdf.
Okay, what do we got now?
This one comes from a former Cuban government employee. They reported seeing truck traffic and tube-like objects seen entering Torrens base on November 7th.
Tube-like objects. That's pretty vague.
It is vague, yeah. But the field comment sheds some light.
What does it say?
It says that the Torrens surface-to-air missile assembly area was active during this time.
Ooh, so we're talking missiles now. This is getting serious.
Right. So we've got tanks rolling around, coded messages about bullets and supplies, mysterious Soviet travelers, and now unusual activity at a missile site, all happening within a very short window after JFK is killed.
It's starting to feel like there's a connection here, like maybe Cuba was anticipating some kind of retaliation from the U.S. or preparing for something big.
It's possible, right? Or maybe it's all just a coincidence, but it's definitely suspicious. Okay, let's shift gears a bit now.
Okay, where are we going next?
Let's look at some more classic spycraft. December 14th, 1963, file 104-10078-10013.pdf.
Spycraft, I'm all ears.
This one concerns a Mr. Alexander Shatton. The message says he'll be traveling light to Sao Paulo, Brazil on Pan Air Donair to Brazil Flight 201 on December 20th. And the key instruction is, will contact station on arrival.
Okay, so he's supposed to meet with someone when he gets there. What else?
The CS comment mentions concerning briefing and training of Devour Pubumtide.
Devour Pubumtide. That's got to be a code name.
Yeah, definitely a code name for something. So we've got a guy traveling light, meeting with someone, and it's all tied to some kind of briefing and training. Sounds like classic spy stuff to me.
Classic spy stuff. I bet they even gave him a secret handshake.
Right. Okay, let's jump ahead a bit now. January 1965, file 104-107-10296.pdf.
A new year, a new adventure.
This one's about Leah Ashcraft. The memo discusses her upcoming resignation from ECA and her future employment.
ECA? What's that?
We're not exactly sure, probably another government agency. Anyway, the interesting part is this line. Leah regarding a request for contact with the Research Institute of America and her planned trip to New York on January 23rd to discuss a cover case.
A cover case. So there's something they're trying to hide.
Right. It seems like her work with ECA might have involved some kind of intelligence activity.
And they need a good cover story to explain what she's really doing.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting. The memo also mentions that Leo Chern and Karl Hofgaard have been granted covert operational clearance.
So they're definitely involved in something secret.
And then there's William J. Akun, who frequently worked for ECA and was planning to resign to go overseas for OPC.
OPC. Another mystery acronym.
Right. It's all very hush-hush, but clearly there's some serious intelligence work going on here.
Lots of layers of secrecy. Hard to know exactly what they were up to, but it definitely sounds like something important.
Absolutely. Okay, May 1965. File 104-10-0069-10260.pdf. This one's about media influence.
Media influence. Okay, now we're talking.
So this is a memo about an organization called the Information Council on the Radio and Television Industry in Latin America, or INCA.
Catchy game.
Right, and according to the memo, INCA was a source of foreign intelligence information on radio broadcasting in Latin America, and its primary focus was anti-communist propaganda.
So using the media to push a certain agenda.
Exactly, and the memo requests information on the directors, officers, and consultants of INCA.
So they want to know who's pulling the strings.
Exactly. This is a good example of how intelligence agencies can use media organizations to spread their message and influence public opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of like a early version of what we see today with social media and all the disinformation campaigns going on.
Absolutely. Okay, fast forward a couple of years, October 13th, 1967. We've actually got two files here. 104-17072-10227.pdf and 104-10227.pdf and 104-100CK1.
AMCLOCK1.
AMCLOCK1. Another code name. I'm sensing a pattern here.
Right. So the report says AMCLOCK1 held a favorable position within the AM thug regime, which is probably another code name for a government or a faction, and they were expected to get a permanent assignment in 1968. Okay, so this person is in a position of power. What else do we know about them?
Well, the report says they had knowledge of New York intelligence types and 4 other individuals.
So they're connected.
And here's where it gets really interesting. AMCLOCK1 brought explained Soviet bloc items to a meeting. The report says possibly weapons or special equipment. And these items were then given to someone identified as Iden F., likely for Mulady.
Wait, hold on. Soviet weapons. That's a pretty big deal.
Right. What were they doing with Soviet weapons? Who is Mulady? So many questions.
Definitely raises some red flags.
And then there's this detail. AMCLOCK1 was cautious about salary payments and requested $500 to buy books and baby items.
So maybe they were trying to stay under the radar, not draw attention to themselves.
It's possible. It's also possible they were just trying to live a normal life while also being involved in this super secret operation.
Oh, right. Like even spies have to buy groceries and stuff.
Exactly. Okay, November 22, 1967. File 104-10073-10279.pdf.
Okay, what's next?
This one's a little different. It's not a memo or a dispatch. It's a news article.
A news article about what?
It's titled, 4 U.S. deserters possibly left Japan aboard Baikal.
Desert.
Yeah, 4 American deserters reportedly left Japan aboard a Soviet ship, the Baikal. And the article even quotes Professor Howard Zinn and others who helped the deserters.
So American citizens defecting to the Soviet Union. That's got to be a huge embarrassment for the U.S. government.
Right, and it shows that even years after the JFK assassination, tensions were still high between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
Definitely. And it makes you wonder if these deserters had any information that could be damaging to the U.S.
Or if they were being used by the Soviets for propaganda purposes. Lots of possibilities there. Okay, let's jump ahead to the 1970s. April 18th, 1970. File 104-1711-17010.pdf.
1970s, a new decade. What's happening now?
This is a memo about the Australian-Vietnam moratorium campaign.
So anti-war protests.
Exactly. And the memo lists several prominent individuals who are involved in the campaign.
Like who?
Pastor Martin Niemöller, Mrs. Nancy Rubin, wife of Jerry Rubin, Mrs. Coretta King, and Mr. Dick Gregory.
Wow, some big names there.
Yeah, all very prominent figures in the anti-war and civil rights movements.
So this shows that the U.S. government was keeping tabs on these movements, even those happening in other countries.
Absolutely. They were concerned about the spread of anti-war sentiment and the potential for these movements to disrupt their foreign policy goals.
Yeah, it's a reminder that intelligence gathering isn't just about spies and secrets. It's also about understanding social and political trends.
Very true. Okay, big jump ahead now. September 18th, 1977. File 104-10079-10231.pdf.
1977, wow, we're really moving through time now.
Yeah, this is a handwritten note with various requests for information, and one notation in particular stands out.
What does it say?
I would like to see MLK DDO files concerning James Earl Ray and JER under any of his aliases.
So they're interested in the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination.
Yeah.
Even though this is years after JFK.
Exactly. And the note also mentions a third agency, INS report from San Francisco Field Office of INS GTD 61768 subject, Chang, Fang Nang, A17E788958, C. Ray's name given as Eric S. Galt.
Eric Escalt. That was one of James Earl Ray's aliases.
Right, so they're clearly digging into James Earl Ray's past.
Makes you wonder if they were looking for any connections between the MLK and JFK assassinations.
Or maybe they were just trying to learn from past mistakes, improve their security protocols. Hard to say for sure. Okay, now we're into the undated files. First up, file 104-10069-10120.pdf.
Undated, so we don't know when these were created.
Right. This one is a secret-sensitive document listing 3 individuals.
Okay, who are they?
Ernesto Rodriguez y Moreno, Laureano Batista, and Victor Paneque.
Any details on them?
Yeah, Rodriguez y Moreno was in Marathon Shores, Florida, age 33, married with 3 children, and noted as one of Batista's agents. Laureano Batista was in Miami, Florida, described as the son of a prominent and reputable Havana banker under Batista. And Victor Paneque, age 42, a former July 26th commander, was reportedly present in Cuba.
So all with connections to Cuba.
And the secret-sensitive classification means they were considered a serious security risk.
Right, but why? What were they up to?
That's the big question. Maybe they were involved in some kind of anti-Castro activities, or maybe they had information that the U.S. government wanted. We just don't know.
It's frustrating, right? All these tantalizing clues, but no answers.
Okay, next undated file. 104-1069-100177.pdf.
This one's about a guy named Cooper.
Okay, what did Cooper do?
Well, according to the memo, he was instrumental in setting up a casino in Istanbul and was helping with others in Ankara and Izmir.
A casino kingpin. That sounds kind of glamorous.
Yeah, but there's more to it than that. The memo also says that Cooper was offering tour packages to various parts of the world.
Tour packages.
Yeah, and it seems like that was a cover for making contact with individuals of intelligence interest.
So using his business as a front for espionage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The memo also notes that Cooper had access to cash individuals and was known as a big gambler.
So he had money and connections. Makes sense that the intelligence community would be interested in someone like that.
Right. He could be a valuable asset or a dangerous liability.
Depends which side he's on, I guess. Okay, last file. 104-1009-10185.pdf. This one's about international diplomacy and infiltration.
Diplomacy and infiltration. Sounds like a contradiction in terms.
Right, so the first section discusses third country diplomats who were in contact with ACSI representatives.
CSI, another agency.
Yep. And these diplomats were from Uruguay, Spain, and Canada.
Okay, so they're using third-party diplomats to gather information.
It seems so, but the memo details Cubark's reluctance to let LT Cole Cause use these channels.
Cubark. Who are they?
Another mystery agency. But anyway, they were worried about security risks and potential damage to long-standing agreements.
So even though it seemed like a low-risk way to gather intel, they decided it wasn't worth the potential fallout.
Yeah, interesting, right. And then the second section of the file discusses maritime infiltration of ACSI agents into PB Mudlin.
PB Mudlin. Okay, that's definitely a code word.
Totally a code word. And the memo says they were having difficulties with this, needed further assessment.
So they're trying to get agents into some location by sea, but it's not going smoothly.
It's a reminder that intelligence work is rarely easy. It's full of challenges and setbacks.
Right. It's not all James Bond sipping martinis and seducing beautiful women.
Definitely not. Okay, so that's it for this deep dive.
Wow, that was a lot of information.
It was, right. We covered a lot of ground.
And it's just a small sample of what's in these newly released files.
Exactly. There's so much more to explore.
It's like we just dipped our toes into the ocean of secrets.
And as always, we encourage you to do your own research, dig deeper, and come to your own conclusions.
That's right, folks. Don't just take our word for it. Go out there and explore the archives for yourselves.
And a huge thanks to all our listeners for their patience as we navigate this very, very disordered collection of files.
We know it's not easy, but it's so important to keep asking questions, keep digging for the truth.
Absolutely. And who knows what other secrets are waiting to be uncovered.
That's what makes this so exciting. Mystery continues.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.